Hi, everybody. I'm Elizabeth. I am a graduate student intern with counseling services at SUNY Broome. And this semester, I am starting this new video series, as you can see, that is called Quarantine Chats with Counseling Services. And in this case, it's with me, Elizabeth. Hi.
Today we're joined by Annie Nelson. She is currently a master's student at SUNY Albany. She's studying school psychology and is finishing up her last semester. She is from Schenectady County in New York. She's 25 and she hopes to work as a school psychologist in a elementary school setting after she graduates. Hope you enjoy.
So, Annie, what is one word that you would use to describe your time as a student or a professional during the pandemic?
Well, I think that's a really hard question because there's a lot of words to describe this time. One would be stressful. That's like obviously, I think across the board, everybody would say that. Unprecedented because we've never really come across anything like this before. Awful. To just throw a little humor in there. But I think I'm a pretty like optimistic person, and I think that the one word that I would like definitely choose would be life changing because across the board, like if you're looking nationwide, worldwide, like it's obviously life changing for many reasons in terms of, healthcare and everything. But I think for me personally, it's been life changing too in terms of how I'm getting my education, how I'm practicing what I'm learning in the schools themselves, and what education even looks like for the children, and then trying to like incorporate mental health into it, because now everybody cares so much more, thankfully, about mental health, even though we still have a long way to go. I think that it's a little bit more on people's minds. So I think that's one exciting piece, I think, that came out of the unfortunate circumstance of the pandemic. And then for me personally, I think I've taken the last couple of months to kind of like reflect more on myself as
Yes.
not just a student, as a worker, but as like a person, and like focusing a little bit more on self-care and realizing like, oh wow, this year has been really awful. And like, what can I do to like make myself better, not only during this time but after it's over? So I'm like, so I've been focusing on that and like changing that and trying to like create a more positive, I guess, like outlook, I guess, for how I see the world and how I'm viewing what's going on.
Yeah, that's very interesting because I feel like we're in very similar situations right now, like in many ways. Like I'm working at a college right now, obviously, like working with students and trying to figure out how to best serve students in mental health, right? But then I'm also a student trying to figure out how to make my own mental health work. So it's like, I feel like we're both kind of seeing both sides and being like, okay, like, how do I do this? Like, how do I not only like help the people I'm working with, the students I'm working with, but then like get through my changing education and then come out the other side as a better self.
Right.
Because I feel like I've put a lot of work into myself and like being more of just like a sustainable person mental health wise, like so that I can get through and then be able to be the most effective like mental health counselor that I can, like on the other side, you know?
Right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, I think it's important too that like whatever you like, how are you expected to not only like help other people but help these kids, and help, like, for me personally, I'm working with middle schoolers, but I've worked a lot with elementary too. Like these children who they have to grasp what's going on in the world as it is, and then on top of that go through school, and like school's not easy to go through. There's bullying, there's, kids in middle school are going through puberty and all that. Like it's not a fun time for literally anybody. And so they're going through that on top of all of this, like the pandemic and all of the like political angst that's going on and all the social justice and everything. And there's so many important things going on in the world right now that it's hard for anybody to understand. So it's like, I have to process what's going on. I have to like somehow figure out a way that like I can be okay with it and like figure out how to get through the day. But I also have to be a sounding board for these kids and like be teaching them what's, you know, what's going to be, that it's okay to have these feelings and like that these feelings are valid and that, you know, sharing them is important and everything that they have is like, you know, it's okay to be feeling like that. And yeah, it's been really tough, but also eye-opening and a really good experience. I'm like happy that I'm going through it as a student, I think, rather than like I think if I was like a seasoned school psychologist, it would be one thing, but I definitely do not envy anybody that like this is their first year in the profession. Like I know that I'm like overwhelmed as it is, and I have a supervisor, I have, you know, professors and stuff to kind of like bounce off of, and like I can't imagine doing it like on my own, so to speak. So
Yeah, given that fact, how have you found meaning through this time? Like, how have you been able to keep going and help people and help yourself and just kind of bring meaning to all of it?
I think I touched on it a little bit earlier, but literally focusing on myself, focusing on the positive is like a huge one for me. Um, I know that it's easier for some people than others to kind of find the positive in situations. I thankfully have always been the type of person to look on like the brighter side of things, like look at the glass half full type of person. Um, but I think that that's really helped me because it's easier for me to do that. And I think that for those who are, it's harder. I can like explain to them my point of view or like why I'm, you know, why I'm seeing it this way or why it could be looked at as a good thing instead of just the bad things. Like it's really easy for anybody to be like, this stinks because of X, Y, and Z. And you're like, yes, but there's this one good thing that's coming out of it. And like that's
Right.
what you should focus on because that gives you the hope and the meaning to wake up in the morning and be like, this one thing I can look at today, I can focus on today, I can get accomplished today, and I can move on tomorrow. And it'll maybe like grow into something else, or like I'll have this to now focus on. And like instead of it only being one good thing, now there's two.
Right.
So that's kind of what I've been focusing on. And that's really helped me.
Mhm. Yeah, and I feel like finding those like pockets of hope, like that's just what you have to do. Like you
Yeah.
really have to find something like no matter where you're at, like in life, no matter like what profession you're in, like find those little pockets and like really try to build on them
Yeah.
as much as you can.
Yeah, definitely. Even like I know sometimes like a day can go by and you can be like this day has not been good, like everything has been going wrong, like on top of everything going on in the world, like nothing is going right, and it's really easy to dwell on that. But sometimes I'll sit down at night and I'll be like, okay, yeah, my day was not good, I did not have a good day, I'm not in a good mental state, I'm just not feeling it today. And then I'll try to think of like three things that I was like happy that happened today, or that like three things that were good. And I'll think like it could be even as simple as like the sun was shining today, or
Right.
like, I had a cup of coffee and it tasted like delicious. Like it
Mhm.
could be the simplest of things, but when you sit down and reflect on it and be like, okay, like there was some good to my day, I just wasn't seeing it at the time, but now that I'm taking the time to reflect on it, it's like it, I don't know, it like alleviates you a little bit and you're not like, okay, that day sucked, like there was some good to it, it's just hard to see it sometimes.
Yeah. And speaking of like good things that, you know, you've been able to find, has there been something like relaxing or fun that you've been able to pursue during the pandemic?
Well, when everything was first going on, it was obviously warmer, like in March, April.
Right.
Um, so I was spending a lot of time outside. Like I was working from home outside, a lot of meetings, like sitting on my back patio, going for walks on my lunch break. That helped me a lot. It helped. I honestly like, I like working from home sometimes and like doing school from home, but also it's very overwhelming and like
Yeah.
it's draining and it's hard to get the motivation. So that was a really good way for me to kind of like break up the day and relax a little bit. But now that it's colder, honestly, like I'll just make sure to carve out time that I can like sit and watch TV that I want to
Mm-hmm.
watch. Or, like, even if it's literally sometimes I'll just go in my room, shut the door, and like be by myself for 20
Yep.
minutes or something. I just like I'll just be doing nothing, literally playing on
Yep.
my phone or like sitting there thinking or just, I don't know, in the dead silence and just thinking about the
Yep.
day or like thinking about what I want to do the next day or what I'm going to do for the rest of the night. And I think that that's like really, really important. Um, but aside from that too, in terms of like not just self-care, but also like I think this pandemic's been especially hard because you can't really like see anybody. And at least for me, I know like there are a couple of friends that I do feel comfortable seeing in the pandemic, like and we still practice like social distancing and everything, and I'll go over maybe to we'll go out to like eat or something like that. But it is obviously limited and it's hard because you want to like your friends make you feel better in a lot of situations, and like when you're feeling down it's like you can't just like go to your friend's house or something. You have to like um do it on Zoom or something, which obviously is great because you get to see and talk to people, but it's also like it's different, and like especially if you're sitting in class all day and then you have you're in Zoom meetings and after Zoom meeting, and then you don't want to sit on Zoom with your friends, like you don't want to spend your whole day in front of your computer. But I think that it is really important to like be safe, obviously, but also still kind of like take into importance like the social aspect of your life and try to find ways to incorporate that um, while being safe.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Human connection is like key
Important.
to
Yep.
many things. Yeah. And like you were talking about, like once in a while, just like shut your door, spend 20 minutes alone. Like that is my go-to.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm feeling stressed, whenever I'm just like, if I'm around people for one more second, I'm gonna scream. Like I always just go in my room and throw anything on, whether it's music or a movie that I've already watched, like anything. Just like throw it on and just zone out.
Yeah.
Like as long as I can, just sit, zone out, and just relax.
Yeah.
Because like you said, like it's so important to like not always be on a computer screen and like have that time to just escape and like tune
Definitely.
out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think too, like, I know it's hard, at least for me. I'm always like, I want to hang out with people. I want to please people. I want to make everybody happy constantly. And like, it's my best and worst quality, honestly.
Mhm.
But I think that this pandemic has made me realize like, it's okay to say to people, like, no, I don't want to do that. Or no, I don't have time to do that. Or, I need to spend time by myself tonight or something, just because like it is so important to kind of recharge like you were saying. And like I always thought before, if I did that I was disappointing somebody or they
Mhm.
would get mad at me, and I didn't want to deal with like the guilt of that. I just wanted like everybody to be happy and that I would be okay like no matter what. And like yeah, I was, but also like I was tired or I wasn't having fun or I was now stressed because I was hanging out with this person instead of writing my paper or whatever. um and I think that that's a really good thing that has personally like I've come out with, is that I've felt more comfortable with like speaking up for myself and saying like no, I need 20 minutes tonight to recharge.
Yeah, for sure. And I
Mhm.
think that's gonna serve us really well, like in our profession as well. Like
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
so glad that I'm learning that now. Like even though it's not under the best circumstances, like I'm really glad that there are some things that like we can take out of it, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Um, what are the most important words of advice that you would give your past college student self about what you're learning now?
um I think that I would probably tell myself to relax. I would tell myself that it's okay to not, I just kind of said this, but like it's okay to not make everybody happy. Like do what you want um, to an extent. But, like trust yourself. It will be okay. It's okay to not know exactly what you wanted to do. I didn't know that I wanted to be in school psych until like the last half of my junior year, and I just honestly like picked it. You can ask
Yep.
ask my advisor. I was like, I need to figure something out. I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I was stressed about it. I went in undergrad as an education major, and I was like, nope, I don't want to do this. I don't know why, but I don't want to do it. I changed to, I think there was a brief period I was undecided for a couple weeks, and then I changed to psych and didn't know what I wanted to do in psychology, but just again picked it because I felt like I needed to pick something because I was feeling pressured by my family and my friends, and I didn't know what to do. So then there I was, not knowing what to do. Finally, I just decided, like, one day I was looking up grad programs and I was like, school psych. Oh, it's kind of like teaching, but not really. And like, kind of like counseling, which I liked, but I didn't really want to be I didn't want to be, for a while, I was thinking about being like a marriage and family counselor. And then I was like, no, I don't think I really want to do that either, but I don't know why. I didn't have any like answers. And that was so frustrating to me. And I'm sure everybody else that I was talking to, because they were like, why don't you know what to do? And I'm like, okay, I'm 20 years old here. Like, how am I supposed to know what I want to do for the rest of my life? So anyway, long story short, I kind of just picked school psych and hoped that I liked it. And I do. And I really, really enjoy it now. So somebody was looking out for me there. But kind of, that was like all over the place. But long story short, trust yourself and do what makes you happy.
No,
Because
that's so good. How do you take care of your mental health, and do you have a self-care routine or activities that you engage in regularly?
Yes, to all of the above. So,
yes, full stop. Goodbye.
yeah. Moving on. No, I think in undergrad, that is one thing that I would tell my younger self too in undergrad, is to like focus a little bit more on self-care and realizing that you're doing self-care without noticing it. And I think that that's really important. And people have to know that too. Like, if you're taking an hour to watch a show, like, that's self-care.
Yes.
But also, like, it means more when you notice that it is, like, when you're mindful of it. That's the word I'm looking for. So like, I can sit and binge watch TV for 6 hours, but like, also if I have all these other things to do, like, that's not self-care because now I'm stressing myself out. But if I take the time to chunk out, like, okay, I'm going to watch TV for 2 hours and then I'll do these things, or I'll do them tomorrow. But as long as you know, and like, you think about that, then it is self-care, because you're allowing yourself to decompress and to like take that time and not to be stressed about the other things that you have going on. So I think that that's really important. And then also, I have like the worst memory on the face of the planet. But making lists is something that I've done a lot. And recently, especially, I've been really like into lists. And it is a form of self-care because it organizes myself, which makes myself remember things, which makes myself less stressed when I don't forget things. And I think that's about it. Oh, and recently, this I just started in like the beginning of January, but I just started journaling, and that has like immensely helped my mental health, which is like insane to me, because I feel like that's one of those things that people always say, like, keep a journal, and you're like, okay, I'm not 13, like, I don't need a journal to hide under my bed, like, it just always seemed so, I guess, like, juvenile to me. And then last year, one of my professors is really into self-care, and he was saying how like important it can be. And we did a little project where we kept a journal for a week, and then we wrote about our experience and stuff. And throughout that, I was like, oh wow, I kind of liked it. But I never kept up with it. Who knows, the pandemic hit and everything went crazy. But this past, like, starting in January, I've really like focused on it, and I've done it pretty much every night. But especially like if I'm having like any sort of like big feelings or big emotions, I'll like literally run to my journal, which is like eye-opening to me. Like within the first 3 days, I think I was feeling like overwhelmed, and I was like, oh, I want to write in my journal. And I was like out, so I couldn't, but I was like, that's weird that I had that thought. Like, I can't wait to write in my journal, because obviously it makes you feel better. And like, you're not telling it to anybody, just a piece of paper. It's crazy. I do write about my big emotions, good or bad. They tend to mostly be like the emotions that are weighing you down more than the things that are like bring you up. And I think that that's probably, I would say, like what a lot of people go through if they're writing their thoughts down. But I do make it a point to kind of like write down like one good thing, which I know I talked about a little bit earlier too, is like focusing on one good thing that happened throughout the day, or like even if it's a quick thing, like I had a good day at work. Like I can just write that. That'll be like my last sentence to the journal. Is like, yeah, it was a good day. Like overall, like although I'm not feeling the greatest, like it's still a good day. I can still get through it, But that's it.
Yeah, no, that like the mindset shift that you're kind of describing in everything you just said, from like putting intention into like what activities you're doing and the journaling, like the mindset is so important. Like it's really hard to start shifting that mindset, but once you do, it's like a domino effect. And then you can't not do it. Like putting intention into like, yeah, I'm going to go lay on my bed, watch a show. Oh man, I feel guilty because I know I have a paper to write. Oh my gosh, I have to go enter my field hours before I forget. Nope, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to do self-care by watching an episode of a show. And like as soon as you start labeling everything as self-care that you're doing throughout the day, it's wild. Like brushing my teeth in the morning, self-care, having a cup of coffee, self-care, lunch, self-care.
Yep, literally. Because I started to think about it as like, because I was kind of confused, honestly, because I was like, people always say like, practice self-care and like do this, and like even drinking an extra glass of water or drinking this could be self-care. And I'm like, well, how is that self-care? Like that's like basic needs. And I'm like, well, yeah, you're taking care of yourself, Annie. Like that's what self-care is. Like it doesn't have to be like yoga 5 times a week. It doesn't have to be like, these crazy things that people think self-care is. It could literally be the simplest things. And I think that that's like a really important piece that people don't think about or don't realize. I don't know. But I think that that's a really important thing that I'm stressing, like in my work and my counseling that I'm doing on site, is kind of saying like, taking care of yourself, and like this is what it can look like. It can also look like going to the gym and doing these things and like going on trips, and well, not right now, but doing X, Y, and Z. But like it can also be the basics of, you got out of bed in the morning, you brushed your hair, you brushed your teeth, you drank water, and you ate lunch. Like that's your self-care for the day. You got through the day, you did it, and that should be applauded.
Yeah. And I feel like the comment you made earlier about journaling, saying like, that kind of sounds like a juvenile thing to do. Like, I feel like, why would I, as like a mid 20-year-old, like, why would I do something like that? But like, that's kind of how my mind thought about these self-care things. Like at first I was like, I should be able to do these things already. That's not self-care. Like these are things that as, my age, I should be doing these things naturally. But then one of my professors said, you should try making like a done list in addition to your to-do list. And then every single thing that you do in a day's time, write it down on your done list. So sometimes when I'm just like not feeling it, or like I'm like, wow, I truly have done no self-care, I truly have been like abandoning myself in this moment, I'll take out an index card and I'll start writing down every single thing that I do, whether it's like, I put clean clothes on today. Heck yeah. Like I logged on my Zoom meeting. Heck yeah. And it really does make a difference.
Yeah. Well, I think too, like that's part of the reason why I like love lists, because I love the feeling of like crossing things off and like feeling the accomplishment of that. And one thing that I've started to do with my list is that I used to write like, work on this report, or like finish this. But then like that task is so daunting to me, and if I don't do it, then I feel like I didn't do something. So I've started to break it up into like, work on the background section of my report, or like work on like the recommendation section, or like doing like something like that's a little bit smaller, so that yes, I'm like crossing things off, but like that's so, like that feels so great at the end of the day. It's when you can be like, yes, I did this, 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 and this. Like, no, maybe I didn't finish it, but I did get like 4 out of the 5 things done. So like that's pretty great.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely like solid advice. Like
Yeah.
break it down like as much as you can. Even if you think the baby step is too small, no, it's not.
Yeah. Well, and then I felt like I was like cheating myself because I was like, okay, this is getting
Mhm.
a little ridiculous. Like write my name on a piece of paper. Like that's literally how I feel like I was like breaking it down, you know? And I was talking with my university supervisor for my field placement, and she was like, why do you feel like that? Like you're doing something, like that's good. And like if that's what makes like if feeling accomplished and like crossing it off makes you feel good, like why would you not write that down and do it? And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I just
Yep.
actually. So that's what I've started to do. And like sometimes also like with that, your lists can be super long. Like sometimes my lists feel like they're really long and feel overwhelming. But then when you read it and at the end of the day, when you look back at it, you're like, wow, I did
Yep.
it. I'm like, that's amazing.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know.
For sure.
That's a good piece of advice that I would give to anybody is to make your lists, but break it down. I think that taking your own advice is really important. So like I historically, like ever since I was like a kid, have always been the person that my friends like come to and talk to. And I love that. I love being that person for them. Right. I love it. And I think that that's kind of what like made me gravitate towards this
Mhm.
line of work. But with that being said, like I have given so much advice in my life. Like and I didn't take a single piece of it, like, for
Nope.
so long, you know, like, I would tell my friends, like, "Practice self-care," or, like, "You deserve better than that." Like, you know, "Get out of that relationship. Don't do this. Like, you deserve better. You're the you know, you're a queen, you know, like, you can do whatever you want." But then, like, I wasn't feeling that way about myself,
Mhm.
and then I guess this is kinda like a little full circle moment because we were talking about this a little bit earlier too, like, how can you help somebody else when you're not feeling that way about yourself or when you're not at your best? And I think that recently, like really recently, within like probably since I started journaling, so like only a month or so, I've really noticed like I need to start like taking my own advice and like doing things for myself and like kind of getting myself a little bit better in terms of not just my mental health, but I guess like my own like self confidence and things like that, professionally, personally, like all across the board. Um, if I really want to like be who I want to be and like do what I want to do in my life in
Mhm.
literally every aspect. So I think that that's really important too, is to like sit down and think about it. Like I just sat for an hour and gave my friend all of this advice. Did I do that myself? And like it can even go for like anything you say in counseling. Like people are telling you constantly, you know, about their lives and there's these crazy situations and they need help with that. And like what you say to them, like, have you stopped and said, like, do I need to hear that myself? And like, yeah, you're not your own therapist, but like if you have one, talk to them about it. Or like you obviously have like gone to school for this. You're, you know, we're professionals, we have credentials, like we're working in this field for a reason, so like you should be able to take your own advice and like hear that yourself, like as hard as it is too. I think it's hard too to take your own advice, but
Yeah. Okay, so last thing is our rapid fire questions.
I'm most excited for this.
So studying at a desk or a couch?
Couch.
Sweet or salty study snack?
Salty.
Online or on paper planner or agenda?
On paper.
Doing homework with or without music?
mm, Probably with.
Early bird or night owl?
I'd say night owl.
Okay. TikTok or Netflix to relax or unwind after a long day?
Oh my god, I can't choose.
You have to. You have to pick.
um I guess TikTok, it makes me laugh more.
Okay, great. And that is all I have for you.
Okay.